This happened to me back in 2007. I was 9 years old and my brother was 14. My mom had sent us out of the house with about $30 to go to a movie and maybe get a bite to eat afterwards. After watching the movie, it was getting pretty dark and I was ready to go home. But my brother wanted to get something to eat first, and we agreed that we would walk to the McDonald's, which was only a couple blocks from the movie theater. On our way there, we were stopped and approached by a man. He had a friendly smile plastered on his face, and he was holding his child's hand. There didn't seem to be anything off about this man. He was average looking and seemed to be nothing more than a father having a day with his son.
Hey, do you two think you can give my son and I a hand real quick?
He asked.
We need help loading a mattress onto the back of our truck. The truck's just up the road.
Sorry, but we don't really have time.
My brother said. It was at this time I noticed the little boy. He was about 8 years old, and he looked abnormally thin. He had a blank expression on his face and wore clothes that were much too big for him. I turned my attention back to the man, who was now mumbling to my brother about how it would only take a second. My brother kindly declined again, and being the helpful kid that I was, I joined in with the man and tried to persuade my brother that we should help them out. I turned to my brother, who was now staring down at the little boy. My brother had a disturbed expression on his face as he looked down at the child. The child stared back at my brother blankly. I didn't understand why my brother had that look on his face. He grabbed my hand and said,
I think that's my mom over there.
He pulled me, and we began walking away from the man. I didn't understand what was going on, and when my brother had just lied about our mom being there. He didn't let go of my hand and practically dragged me until we were a far distance away from the man and his son. I looked back and I could see the man holding his son's hand. Only now, he wasn't smiling anymore. He had a look of fury on his face. And he yanked the little boy by the arm and they walked away. I pulled away from my brother's grasp and bombarded him with questions. He shushed me and pulled out his cell phone out of his pocket. He dialed in a number and began pacing around nervously while talking on the phone. I remembered the police showing up, and my mom came soon after. She took me home, but my brother was left with the police. I asked my mother what was going on, and she said that the police were just questioning my brother because the man we had encountered was dangerous. That's all she told me, and I went to bed. By the next morning, I had almost completely forgotten about the incident, and things went back to normal. It wasn't until a few days ago that these memories flooded back into my mind. I decided to call my now 22-year-old brother to get some answers. When I brought up the ordeal back up to him, he finally gave me the information I wanted to know. And now I know everything. I understand how fucking terrifying our encounter with that man truly was. My brother told me while the man was constantly trying to convince us to come with him, he happened to look at the little boy. The little boy then looked at my brother with his eyes filled with terror, and mouthed the words,
I'm not his son. Please, help me.
Then his expression went back to being completely blank, almost as if he had never said anything at all. This was why he had become so freaked out and snatched me away. When he called the police, they hurried down and he described the man as best as he could. They couldn't do much with what little information my brother had given because he hadn't even seen the car that the man supposedly had. My brother told me a few weeks into the investigation they had found the little boy who was with the man, dead. His body had been cruelly dumped into the woods. The cause of death was malnutrition and dehydration. If my brother and I had gone with that sicko, we likely would have met the same fate. He obviously couldn't have kidnapped both of us on his own, as my brother was a fairly strong fellow. That meant he had other pedophile partners who would have helped him snatch up unsuspecting kids. Unfortunately, they were never able to catch any of the sick fucks that did this to the child. But the man was definitely not his father. His real parents had already been searching for their missing son for almost a month. The pedophiles had managed to kidnap the poor kid and use him as their puppet to kidnap other children. Every time I think about the boy, I feel a deep pity for him. He was only a year younger than I was at the time, and I can only imagine how terrible it must be to slowly starve to death. I live in a small village with 2 large cities on each side. We have 2 large grocery stores, and sometimes people from the cities come here to shop since it's quieter. There is a lot of social interaction, so usually we know who comes from the cities and who actually live here. A few weeks ago, I, a 30-year-old woman, was doing some grocery shopping. I greeted some people, found the things I needed, and helped a young girl around age 6 or so with grabbing tea from a high shelf. I thought I recognized her as being the kid of an old schoolmate, but I didn't ask her or really say more than, "Here you are." She sends me a large smile back, and I thought she looked really adorable. I was nearly done when I saw the girl again. She was standing hand in hand with a man that I thought might be her father, and when she looked at me I sent her a smile. It was very clear that he wasn't in fact her father. When she yelled out,
Mom!
she ripped her hand away from him and ran at me only to wrap her arms around me. I was startled for a moment, but then wrapped my arms around her and glared at the man. I demanded to know who he was, but he turned around and quickly stalked off to another aisle. I wanted to go after him, but that's kinda hard to do when you have a kid hanging off your waist. A kid who was now weeping. I'm no good with kids, but I tried to comfort her and I figured I should go to the cash registers and ask if someone could call for her mom when she arrived. She was indeed my old schoolmate. When the girl had finally calmed down, the man was long gone. But she told us that he had complimented her hair and wanted to take her to the Italian ice cream parlor, which was 2 streets over. He had grabbed her by the wrist, not her hand like I had thought at first, and she actually had bruises. We reported it to the management of the store. I could actually give them a good description of the man and gave our contact info. He said he would check the security footage too and also send the info to the police. I haven't been contacted about it, but the cashier told me last time that they were keeping an eye open for that guy. So I've been lurking a bit and I thought you guys might want to hear my creeper story. The lesson in it being that you can't trust your friends. This happened to me almost 2 years ago when I was 22. I live in an area outside of Pittsburgh. I was single at the time, and the only thing I wanted to do was have fun and forget about my ex. I should say that I'm a very cautious person, verging on paranoid sometimes. I've never even broken a bone. I never trusted anyone I didn't know. I learned my lessons very young. So I felt very equipped to go out by myself to the local bar, because I knew how to make the environment safe. I made fast friends with the bartenders, got along with the regular guys there as well. I made it very clear to everyone that I didn't want any sort of romantic attention. I literally just wanted friends and booze. Out of all the men there, one stuck out. Phil was attractive and funny, and best of all, wasn't interested in me one bit. I had problems having male friends, as all of them always girlfriend-zoned me eventually. Phil actually liked having me as a friend. Nothing else. It was awesome. We went to the local bars all the time together. I'd be his wingman, he'd be my bodyguard. When guys hung around me too long and I wasn't interested, I'd give Phil a look and he'd usher the guy away. Perfect setup. We both felt pretty safe no matter where we went, but neither of us saw this one coming. A few months into our friendship, Phil rings me up and asks if I want to go cosmic bowling. Yes! I hadn't been since I had been a preteen, so I was really stoked. I get ready, I did my makeup very bright and expressive, threw on a bright blue shirt and overall shorts. I don't wear them anymore. I don't know what I was thinking. Black combat boots, and I'm ready to go. The car that pulls up isn't Phil's. I call him and cautiously ask who's in front of my house, and he says to come on out, that it's a few of his friends. This reassures me and I head to the rather large Ford SUV. I sit next to Phil and he introduces me to everyone. The man driving is Jason, his girlfriend is in the passenger seat. There's some gross kid in a fedora and this goofy hillbilly kid. Not uncommon outside of Pittsburgh. They say we're going to a few towns over, that there's a bar we're stopping at first, then bowling. Cool. I'm up for that. We get to the bar and it turns out Jason knows the bar owner and we drink for free and get free pizza while we're at it. I went up to the front of the building for a smoke and turn around and find Jason walking up behind me. He shakes my hand and apologizes for not introducing himself properly. I said it was fine and we made casual talk while we smoked. He expressed how much he loved my style. Burlesque rockabilly pinup is how I believe he described me. I thanked him, and he began to tell me about the gay bar that he DJs at, and how his girlfriend isn't comfortable with the fact that he's bi. As a pansexual, I can relate to what he's going through. I immediately feel more at ease with him. I tended to trust men who weren't straight more because I felt as though they were less of a threat, which was a mistake in hindsight. His girlfriend came out and seemed annoyed with me, but I treated her very nicely as I understood it's easy to get jealous. We've all been there. Fast forward to bowling. Phil is way too drunk and ends up getting thrown out of the bowling alley. His girlfriend comes to pick him up and apologizes that she can't take me home as well. I tell them it's okay and I'll be safe. Jason agreed to take me home. Fast forward. Bowling is over and Jason decided to head back to the bar and have the owner reopen after hours for us. I thought that was pretty freaking rad, that he had connections like that. They reopened the bar just for us, and Jason actually tended the bar. I sat and talked with the owner for a while Jason fed me alcohol. I kept trying to refuse, but he was really convincing. This shot tastes like toasted marshmallows. You have to try it. Before I know it, I'm hammered. I don't remember much, but I do remember getting home safe. And I made new friends. How exciting. Jason adds me on Facebook and invites me to the gay bar the very next day. I'm excited. I've never been to the one that he works at. I trust him. The months go by, and we were fast friends. I started to hang out with him without Phil. He would pick me up, I'd set up his DJ equipment at the bar and get him whatever he needed. Then party the night away, and he'd take me home. Sometimes his girlfriend was there, but most times not. She didn't seem to like me still, but I was nothing but nice to her. It began to bother me. Maybe she saw something I didn't. Valentine's Day rolled around and I was the local single woman who hated everyone. Jason invited me to a burlesque show that he was going to be doing the lighting for. His girlfriend was going to be there and so was the hillbilly. That was mentioned earlier. 10 minutes into the adventure, I already had to tell off the hillbilly. Just because it is Valentine's Day and you are single and going to the same club as I am does not make a date. The show happens, it's long, and eventually I get bored and head to the bar. Jason's girlfriend comes up to me and is silent. She buys 2 shots of tequila and hands me one. She clinks my glass and says, "Good luck." And we take our shots. I realized what she said as she walked away and thought it was odd. The hillbilly drives me home. I wake up. 46 missed calls, 20-some texts from Jason. I call him concerned. He doesn't seem upset. He says he just wants to talk to me, that maybe he had a few too many drinks and that he was sorry. Okay, I guess. No big deal. He wanted me to come help and take the lights down off of the club. I agreed. He picked me up and something seemed off, but I couldn't place it. His face looked haggard. He talked like his emotions were stretched too thin. We get to the club and it's locked. He called the owner and they said that they would be there soon, within the hour. He seems very agitated and doesn't even want to get out of the car and walk around to look at the shops. He then ignores my attempt at conversation and calls someone on the phone, an EMT who he's acquainted with. He asks him for things to steal from the ambulance. It started off innocent enough. Gauze, bandages, tongue depressors, and eventually, "Do you still have the leather resistance for mental patients? Do you guys have scalpels on the ambulance? One of those big needles, like the huge syringes? What about those pads that soak up fluid, like to put under a patient when they're bleeding? The full body ones." The phone was on speaker. I could hear the tension in the man's voice. He told him no to each of the requests and was getting more and more nervous as this bizarre back and forth continued. Eventually the man hung up on Jason. I sat there, trying not to seem conspicuous, and he screamed in my face, "What is the fucking problem now?" I smiled and said nothing was wrong, trying to diffuse whatever was going on with my friend. He laughed nervously and apologized, said that he had a rough Valentine's Day. and that he was trying to get stuff for his friend's performance art piece and wasn't having any luck. I trusted him. After we took down the equipment, he took me to the gay bar, and one of the male strippers took a liking to me. Long story short, I may or may not have made a poor life choice that night. Anyway, the bar closes and Jason isn't talking to me. We get in his car and drive a little down the road and he explodes. What the fuck? How could you do that to me? Alice, how could you? 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 He started crying, swerving all over the road. Don't you have any self-respect? Any respect for me? I told him to mind his own business and to pull over. I'm walking home, and if he follows me, I'm calling the police. I took out my phone and dialed 911, but didn't press send. Everything finally made sense that this was not a person who was my friend, and it's time to be strong and fight. He pulls over and lets me out, silently. He drives off. I call my father for a ride, and he picks me up and asks what happened. I'm not a personal human. I'm not good at sharing. I only told my father that if a man with an awful sideburn shows up at our door, bring a gun. Fast forward. I went to another bar with Phil. He was very protective of me after the incident, never leaving me out of sight for very long. I walked to the bathroom, which was down a dark hall at this particular establishment, and felt someone latch onto my arm. Jason. Internally, I was furious and scared, but on the outside, I did my best to remain calm. He looked dead inside. Nothing in his eyes. Just blank. I left Chrissy for you, Alice. I did. You did this to me, but that's okay. Really, because we're going to be fine. You can also sleep with whoever you want. I know how you are, so it doesn't matter to me if it's girls or guys or what. I'm sorry. I let it get to me before. You're just so amazing. I don't want to lose you. It's okay. It is. You can treat me like garbage if you have to, if that's what makes you happy. We're going to be together now. Yes, you're perfect. I've always liked winter weddings. I let my rage get the better of me, and with as much venom in my voice as I could manage, I snarled. No, I am not your girlfriend. I am not. Never have been, never will be attracted to you. You need to let go of me now, you pathetic sack of shit. He blinked and squeezed tighter and began to try to drag me towards the door. We're going to Florida now, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. The next thing I know, I fell to the ground with him and he let go. Phil was on top of him, beating the piss out of him. After he was satisfied, he took him by the shirt and dragged him out the door. A bartender helped him up. A few guys gathered around me and tried talking to me to calm me down. Some even apologized that they didn't see the confrontation in the hall go down. I didn't call the police because I wasn't thinking straight. I didn't want Phil to get in trouble for beating him within an inch of his life. I don't go out much anymore. Hey, how's it going? My name is Zombie and thank you so much for listening to that video. I just want to give a huge thank you and shout out to some very close friends of mine, TitaniusGamer77 and EpicMineGaming, who played some very crucial characters and roles in the story that they read in. I really couldn't have done this video without them. I will make sure to put their YouTube links in the description below. Make sure you check them out because they are some of the most amazing people that I've ever known, and I've known them for quite a long time. I had so much fun doing this video with them, and I hope to do it again sometime. So, yeah, thank you, TitaniusGamer77 and EpicMineGaming. I appreciate you and I love you. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will be coming at you in the next one. Have a great night, guys.